Hello guys, today we'll watch this video by O and Co Games.
I remember a day, probably about 6 years ago, when I was in the car with my wife and I turned to her and said, "This might sound a little crazy, but I think I want to make a video game. I love doodling, I could probably figure out pixel art, I love composing music, and I have a career in user experience design. It seems like something I could do if I just take the time that's needed to learn how to."
Again, as I told you, many people come from not just game design love experience, but sometimes they come just from programming majors or just art majors. So yeah, some game dev attracts many different people with many different interests.
Use a game engine.
Because game dev is one of the best ways to show off your skill in a portfolio. Like, what's best to show off your UI in a video game or just a plain UI in Adobe XD or something like that? Of course, in a video game, it would look way more professional because of like UI, HD, and more complex user experience. So yeah, many people like this stuff for different approaches.
She was super supportive of the idea, but it still took me 2 years to actually start acting on this little dream I had. Lots of crazy things happened.
Of course, many people don't know. Game development is one of the hardest and most complicated majors out there. So it's completely okay if you started for 2 years and you are just starting to understand how this works. It's complicated, especially solo game dev takes up a lot of time because you need to learn things that each take 4 years to master. So, like art takes 4 years to master, and programming 4 years to. And by the way, it's not like mastering like it. Some people take tens and decades to really master it, but we're talking about like something acceptable, and you need to learn it within learning the game design and stuff like that.
In our lives in those 2 years, including the birth of our second child, who is a total rock star and has a
Congratulations.
physical disability. So I'm honestly not inclined to be too hard on myself for that 2 year delay. At any rate, 4 years ago, I chose to start learning Game Maker Studio 2, thanks to games like Hyper Light Drifter, Undertale, and a Celeste playthrough video with Maddie Thorson's team where they said despite using their own framework, Celeste honestly could have been made in an existing engine like Game Maker Studio 2. Knowing that I wanted to start out simple as a solo dev and make a 2D pixel
By the way,
game.
Game Maker Studio, many people started with it. Don't be hesitant to use any game engine. It's not just the famous game engines like Godot, Unreal, and Unity. There's also tons and tons of other engines like Construct, Game Creator, Brave. There's many to even count. So, I mean, maybe even making a custom game engine. So don't worry about that. Just use whatever makes you feel comfortable and you can do more in it.
This seemed like the right fit. So for the span.
Also, put what you really want to do in the future in consideration, like maybe accessibility and mobile support and stuff like that before choosing your game engine. Oh, but yeah, most game engines already support that, so yeah, you can neglect that, but it's important to put in consideration.
Span of about 2 months, I spent every lunch break I had going through Sean Spalding's platformer tutorial series on YouTube and building what I believed at the time would be my dream game. It would be a tough as nails platformer that told a story about physical disability and the love that parents have for their kids. This was my first game ever, so of course the code was sloppy and I made tons of mistakes as I learned the ins and outs of Game Maker. The game was called Bravemark, and honestly, I'm proud of how far I got on it, despite the fact that I never finished it. Now, in tangent with Bravemark, I also started participating in game.
Yeah, see, the platformers are one of the hardest things currently to nail and to get really people to play it because there is too much platforming games. But if you really nailed the game, you really nailed the gameplay, made something really unique, not just a copy of a game, you could get a very good uh, fan base for the game. Your game could be successful, but it's important to make the game unique, something that isn't there already, or something that is there but it's just made solid. So yeah, sometimes narrative design also matters in platformers. Platformers could be easily narrative designed, unlike like MMORPGs, for example, which could be much more complicated in narrative design. And yeah, so yeah, yeah, platforming games are a good choice to start in, just like horror games, but feel free to start whatever type of game you like.
Game jams. For those of you who don't know, game jams are events often hosted online where a theme is provided and developers have a short time to make a game that fits the theme. Sometimes game jams are 2
See,
weeks.
I know many people stressing about game jams, but it's not necessary. In fact, in the first 4 years of me starting game dev, I've never participated in a game jam. And I participated after that, and it's okay. And it does not matter. I know many people that never participate in a game jam, but they are an amazing professional game developers. Um, uh, Game jams, yeah, could help many people because they have many, of course, benefits. But it's okay if you do not feel comfortable, because I had many messages before from developers. I do not like the idea of making a game jam. I like making small project, 3 to 4, 5 months projects. Make me feel more comfortable in development. Makes me the most creative and the most productive. So yeah, of course, do the thing that you feel comfortable, and don't very stress yourself for just game jams.
Weeks long, sometimes they're just 2 days. They're super fun and they are a great way to make friends and practice game development. The first game jam that I ever participated in was the Game Maker community.
By the way, one of the most important things is to actually be involved in the community. Because if you are not involved with the community, you could miss out a lot of job offers that could potentially gain you a ton of experience. So definitely be involved. Talk to people. Join servers. Talk with them at email some people, add them to LinkedIn, try to communicate as much as possible. It's a small community, and everyone is, to be honest, most of the people are good in this community and ready to help.
Community's 10th annual game jam. The theme was party, so I made a game about a candle running away from a birthday kid trying to blow it out. It's a funny little game. I made it over the span of 2 days, and it was the first time I ever released anything for strangers to play. I did just fine in the jam. I think I placed 11th or something, and the thrill of creating something, then throwing it out into the world was just intoxicating to me. So over the span of about 6 months after that, I proceeded to participate in several other game jams, and they served as an outstanding way for me to get involved in the indie dev community and hone my skills as a game developer. Every jam was a blast.
The art that he's making. I know probably an artist before he started programming. His art is amazing. The thing that he's lacking is game design principles, game art principles, because there is obviously some bad stuff in pixel complexity here, between the backgrounds and the character. And yeah, he lacks a bit of HUD, for example. But this is a game jam game, so it's okay to have that.
And I even won a few. Now, I could probably talk for hours going down memory lane like this, but eventually I need to get to the point of this video, and probably the reason you're here in the first place. That is, what have I learned over the past 4 years as an indie developer? And if you're a developer or aspiring to be one, what can you learn from my experiences that will help make you a better developer? I've organized my thoughts into a few main points that I've learned over the years, and I've intentionally kept them pretty high level. Things that I believe are applicable to just about anyone making video games, regardless of game genre, engine, or experience level. So with that, let's get into it.
Growing your Instagram doesn't have to be hard. Let me explain. Go to Plixie.com, set up an account, and start for free. No worries. You won't need to give your...
So the first thing that I want to talk about is the importance of follow-through. During those first 2 months when I was learning Game Maker, I was pretty much constantly excited about the prospect of making my own game. Each time I learned something new, I envisioned how I could use it in my dream game. Each time I participated in a game jam, I tried to stretch my knowledge on a subject with this innate drive to make something great. That internal motivation, the excitement of one day being able to call myself an indie developer, died. Now, I realize that's kind of a dramatic way to say it, but I want to stress the fact that the way I saw game dev in the early days is very different from the way I see it now. When I first started, I learned that Toby Fox, using Game Maker Studio, made Undertale in just 1 year, and I thought, yeah, I can finish a game by...
he finished it in a 1 year, but his years of experience are a lot, especially in that one engine. And he probably did pre-production even before that year. And he raised a Kickstarter, as I think, or something. He raised a crowdfunding, and he got a good amount of money. So it's not just a one uh, small game. Like, it's not the normal state of developing an indie game. You need to understand that.
2021. I was starry eyed and thought that a year estimate was a pretty safe bet. What I didn't know was that Toby
No,
Fox had been building all
it depends on your scope and what are the type of the game that you are making. Of course, an MMORPG is different than just a platformer game in matter of scope and the time of production and pre-production.
sorts of stuff in other engines like RPG Maker before his breakout hit. And Undertale actually took almost 3 years to make, not just one. And I think we all kind of have that inclination to think success came for developers like Toby Fox quick or suddenly. While there are a very sparse few where that might be correct, most indie devs have been at this for quite some time before we're even made aware of them. Now, I mentioned I see game
That's
dev
right.
differently now.
You see their success only when they are famous. So they already succeeded. You did not see them when they made something and failed and they deleted it and stuff like that. So don't think that you will just pass in one try. It's not logical.
Than I did 4 years ago, but I want to point out that while my youthful excitement died, it was reborn into something more refined, and I'm arguably more excited about game development now than I was back then. My excitement is just maybe a little better informed. I'm
The
more
art of this game is, by the way, amazing. I very like it. The pixel complexity is amazing. The elements and color distribution and volume distribution in the game is at all amazing. This is a piece of art, to be honest.
aware of the amount of work that goes into
I
making a
don't know
masterpiece
the name
video
of the game.
game,
Maybe
and while some days I
the
have to
channel, the one that's speaking, he made it. I don't really know the name of the game, but it looks astonishing.
muscle through feeling unmotivated, it's work that I'm willing to do, and it's work that I have truly grown to love. So the takeaway for you is, if you're a new or aspiring indie developer, get ready for your motivation and excitement to die down, but let that motivation turn into something steady and reliable. Learn to love the grind and be willing to follow
Yeah, I
through on your
guess it's his
projects.
game.
Stick with
Yeah,
them,
it's
even when that
amazing.
initial excitement goes
Astonishing.
away.
Look at this art. It's a masterpiece. Look at this. Oh my God. This is a masterpiece of art, to be honest. This is amazing. If you're a pixel artist or someone who wants to make art for his game, this is something to look at. Amazing narrative design for the game of the world building. As you see the statues, you can see and feel the view. You can see it from the clothes of the people. You can see it from the statues, the religious somewhat of thingy. Even the windows are built in a way to match the area and the theme. You can tell a story. You can you can tell a story just by looking at this scene. This is what a good narrative driven art in a video game looks like.
Stick with them, even when that initial excitement goes away. Okay, the next lesson I've learned over these 4 years is just how amazing the indie dev community really is. There are thousands of us, all at different levels, and just about every indie developer I've run across has been super kind, understanding, and supportive. Something about being in this together and understanding the work that goes into making a game makes indie
Even the portrait and everything in visual terms of the game that we're shown, I think the game he's making is totally astonishing and amazing. It's just amazing.
devs some of the coolest people you'll ever meet. Every time I participated in a game jam, I always got really supportive feedback and encouragement, and that turns into
Of
something
course, every time listen to feedback. Feedback is amazing, and it could transform the way that you are making video games. I know some people don't like criticism much. I saw many people that crash out of criticism, but you need to listen to them. Sometimes there is the best advice that you could hear in your entire life.
contagious. When someone supports my work or gives me some words of motivation, I feel an inherent drive to go and support other people's work. It's a community that readily shares knowledge through tutorials and is always there to answer questions and lift you up. Sure, sometimes you get a grumpy Gus, but there's just such an overwhelming amount of support in the indie development scene that those negative voices get lost in the beautiful cacophony of supportive friends. Now, if this somehow hasn't been your experience so far, I'd encourage you to go look for people who will give you a helping hand and words of encouragement. I'll bet you won't have to look that far. Honestly, you can even head over to my Discord server. There are some cool cats over there that would be more than excited to see what you're working on, give constructive feedback, and support you in your game dev journey. The link to my server is in the description below if you want to hop over there after this video.
Of course, guys,
I found a new way to
out.
create UGC ads with AI that will save you over $1,000 a week and double your conversion rate. The video you're watching right
Okay, the next thing I've taken away from the last 4 years of indie game development is the critical importance of focusing on player experience over anything else in your development process. When all is said and done, it doesn't matter how fancy your graphics are or how optimized your code is. What matters is whether or not people actually enjoy your game.
Yes, until you are making a commercial game, accessibility is crucial. But if you are making a test or prototype or something just for people to try, not a commercial game, it does not really matter much. But when you are making it commercial, you need to consider accessibility, different screen sizes, multilingual support, colorblind support, and blah blah blah, many stuff.
Now, of course, graphics and optimized code can feed into that enjoyment. Nobody wants to play
And
a
it will
laggy
give
game
you
that
experience
crashes every
of
3.
how AAA and AA and big studios really work in, because sometimes working with optimized code, thinking in a way of making a scalable system, a reusable system, makes you more experienced in working with bigger studios if that was an intended purpose of yours.
30 seconds. But I think as developers, it's easy for us to hyper focus on fancy code rather than the true end result. And that true end result isn't just what's on the screen, but rather the experience you'll be creating for your players. So as you go about designing your game, you've got to constantly be testing it with people to make sure they're having the experience you're hoping to design. Are people getting stuck in places you don't expect them to? Is your game too easy or too hard? Are players connecting with the characters in your story? Whatever it is that you envision for your game,
These are solid points about characters, the narrative design again, on the gameplay difficulty curve.
make sure to test it with people to make sure the experience they're having is moving towards your vision. Now, I get a lot of comments asking about finding test participants, which I understand can be hard sometimes. I'll make a video on this exact topic in the future, but for now, my advice to you is to first reach out to your friends on social media and then friends of those friends. When you conduct a playtest, ask the player if they have any friends who'd be interested in trying your game as well. Once that pool is exhausted, go find people in online indie dev communities or Discord servers. If you want to test your game in person,
just
I
as I
highly
said, you
recommend
need to
getting a
connect
Steam
with the
Deck if you
communities.
can afford one and have a build of your game on that. Take it with you to places where you'll find people who can test your game. My team and I even set up a booth at our local farmers market
A
to
booth
test our
could be
game
a
users.
nice thing if you are like in a country that has some game devs, or an event of game devs or people interested in video games.
Steam Deck like this. However you go about finding people, just make sure that you're focusing on that player experience. I know that last lighting tutorial you saw on YouTube was exciting, but before you go down the rabbit hole on that, make sure your game is going to be fun first. Then you can go to town on polishing things and implementing that exciting lighting system. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this video is what my last 4 years of indie game dev have done to my perception of other video games, whether they're indie or AAA titles. I can't play a game anymore without subconsciously or consciously analyzing its design. I imagine a lot of you are the same way.
Whenever you see a game, after being a game dev, you will definitely go analyze it and see how could you benefit from the thing that you saw and maybe reuse it in your video game.
And it's honestly made me appreciate and enjoy video games more than I ever did before. I can appreciate some of the design decisions that are inherent in these games that I might not have noticed before I started making video games myself. Things like input buffering in Super Smash Bros. And Neon White, atmospheric design in Cuphead and Hollow Knight, or all the juice you can find in games like Garlic or just shapes and beats. There's just so much to dissect in just about every game, and it's genuinely fun to pocket some of the design choices other developers make and use them as inspiration in my own game designs. Now, of course, I can...
This is why even if you are making video games, you need to always take a break and go play video games, because it's a great brainstorming ideas.
Be a stinker and find things to complain about in games as well, like how long the onboarding process is for Hogwarts Legacy, but I think being more educated in general about game design is a healthy thing that all of us can benefit from, especially when it comes to combating games that are designed to manipulate player behavior in a way that benefits the company behind the game at the expense of the player. I'm talking about in-game microtransactions, addictive game loops, ad spamming, and things like that.
Microtransactions just sucks, and no one wants to try them. Game studios should start stopping them.
Anyway,
I
that's
know
about
they
all
are,
I've got.
Profitable, but in long-term investment, they will suck.
For this video. Hopefully you were able to find something in my 4-year journey so far that you can take home with you and apply in your game design process, or even just in how you view and play video games. While 4 years seems like a decent chunk of time, it still doesn't seem like that long ago when I started making video games myself. I'm sure there's plenty I have left to learn, and I'll have a lot more to say after another 4 years, especially considering all of the advancements we're seeing in the industry and the continual evolution of technology. But I guess all of that is for future me to think about. For now, I'll go back to making my pixel platformer Tethergeist, which, by the way, you can playtest and wishlist on Steam using the link in the description.
It looks like a very amazing game. And yeah, an amazing video from All&Co Games. Definitely go and check out their channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.